So one conversation I know everyone in this room has had deals with something that I think most of us need more of. Sleep. Oh my God, I slept 5 hours last night. I'm literally exhausted. And it's funny, but I can probably predict the following response, something maybe along the lines of, yeah, I got like 3. Isn't it interesting that we react this way, taking this phrase and posing it as a question, instinctively comparing ourselves and responding? So why can that mentality be dangerous, especially when considering other important topics like oppression and race? So I'm Aabidah Afzal. I'm 17. I'm a senior here at Shaker. I'm an Indian Muslim American woman, and I love to bike. I go camping every summer with my family and can speak around 3 languages. My family lives all around the world. These are things that make up who I am. They build my perspective. And the same goes for you. There are things that we are inherently born with and things that we acquire over time. So because our identities are complex, they can be compared to a mixture of different materials. Wood, glass, stone, all welded together, all creating the unique individuals that are here sitting right now. So how can we compare ourselves when these instances are not the same? And because our identities are so complex, understanding how oppression works with them is another intricate story. But let me try to simplify it for you. So essentially, my story, my identity has its own challenges. It has its own expectations, its own realities, its own history, its own oppression. How can we compare ourselves to one another when these fundamental things are different? And if we try to act upon these comparisons, saying that we may have things in common, it'd be the same as acting upon a comparison of a pencil to an apple, really only distantly linked by a tree. So the origins of the Olympics started in ancient Greece to honor the king of the Greek gods, Zeus. And while today the games take place once every 4 years, athletes train extensively. There's a lot of buildup. They want to push themselves, prove their limits, and bring glory to their country. To take part in this competition is an achievement in itself, nevertheless actually winning gold medals. Winning gold medals. So the Olympics that our society participates in, consciously or not, attempts to win gold medals on who has it most, who has it the worst. Oppression Olympics, first coined by Elizabeth Martinez, a feminist, writer, and community activist in 1993, these Olympics are when people from marginalized groups compete to see who has it worse based on their overall experiences with oppression. It's not necessarily participated in such a formal atmosphere, nor do these conversations always receive such a strong spotlight. Truth be told, the most common forms of these Olympics are the ones slipped into our conversations. Naturally, but we shouldn't accept it as normal. The term Oppression Olympics to some might sound artificial, maybe even melodramatic, but if we look at what it constitutes, it might resonate as a familiar idea. At least that's what I thought after watching the viral scene in Ginny in Georgia. The 2 main characters, both biracial, discuss their feelings, especially when Ginny, the one on the left, expresses how she was upset over her loss in an English competition. Her friend Hunter tries to help her feel better, but also brings up the very important point that her failure in the competition was due to a lack of proper formatting. Ginny denies this, instead saying that it was due to her experiences with a teacher who she claimed was just being racist, due to her having a biracial identity and having a bold personality. The teacher and Ginny has had conflicts in the past, so she just believed that he was acting upon them. This triggers a wave of emotions because Hunter too was biracial. And now they just attack each other, bringing up their identities and the stereotypes that are often associated with them. Ginny exclaims that the stereotypes that worked with Hunter only benefited him. Asians were smart. But the stereotypes that she carried with her opposed Black women is only capable of 3 things: being loud, being annoying, and being crazy. So while their conversation might have been a little embarrassing, a little cringy, the dialogue was not properly written, it strikes a familiarity with all of us, because using comparison to undermine each other's accomplishments is not something that's that unfamiliar. We see it all the time, unfortunately, in toxic friendships to relationships. It's a real important issue. So an unfortunate example that's been brought up today, how it zooms into the middle of the pandemic with the unjust killing of George Floyd. The murder rose more attractions to the Black Lives Matter movement, a movement designed to fight racism and highlight prejudice to African Americans, especially in the forms of police brutality. And while support rose all across the world, opposition in an unusual form also began to grow. The Blue Lives Matter movement originally started as a troll, but it was deemed to highlight and take away the spotlight from this issue, the issue of police brutality. It's an exceptional example of people and their reactions when they view oppression as a competition. So the fundamental thing that's wrong with oppression and the Oppression Olympics and what it reinforces is this idea of oppression as a hierarchy mindset. But it's wrong. There is no need for minorities to be stepping over other groups, the act of a competition encourages. Instead, we must look at how it's important to work together and use our oppression to fight our oppression, not others. So let's zoom to the peak 1960s, the peak of the Civil Rights Movement Act. These 3 groups, fundamentally different in every single way from what they stood for, from how they originated, banded together to work against systematic oppression. There's 3 main parts to this alliance. The Black Panther Party originally started from a group of college students that focused on Black nationalism, socialism, and police brutality. The Young Patriot Organization, supporting young white poor migrants who experienced extreme poverty and discrimination. And lastly, the Puerto Rican Young Lords, a Chicago-based street gang that was focused on fighting for neighborhood empowerment and the self-determination for the Puerto Rican people, Latinos, and colonized individuals. Together, these 3 fundamentally different groups work together to fight against systematic oppression in the forms of inadequate housing and police brutality. They banded together in one of the most segregated cities in post-war United States. And this is an example of how history has shown that working together and fighting against oppression is the way that we should be doing it, not comparing ourselves. It's important to note that while we all are different people, we don't deserve to be treated any differently. We should redirect our energy and target oppression as a whole, rather than the individuals that are often impacted by it. Thank you.